Good morning and welcome to another yet exciting edition of Daybreak on Trust TV. It is a beautiful Monday morning as usual, and in case you've forgotten, we're actually in December and it's the last month of the year. What are your plans for the new year? What are your plans for the holidays? Hope at least you're trying as much as you can to enjoy the holidays. Well, my name is Darshan Husseina Usman, welcoming you once again to Daybreak on Trust TV, and I'm not alone. I have my co-anchor Abdulaziz in the building, and we're super excited. Big congratulations to you on your win at the Wale Soyinka, investigative reporting, awards.
Thank you very
congratulations
much. Thank you. I thought the news reporters shouldn't be news themselves.
No, you are news. It's a big win, and you need to be celebrated as well. You need to be proud of what you're doing. That way, you can actually do a lot more. So, big congratulations.
Thank you very much, Husseina, and good morning, viewers. Welcome to another edition of Daybreak on Trust TV. And we are coming to you live from the studios of Trust TV here in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And today is Monday, the 12th of December. December is already midway.
It's gone already.
So we'll be celebrating the Christmas bells will be ringing very soon, and
New Year's,
of course, and then we'll be zooming into the new year. We hope you all enjoy and have the best of the remaining part of the year. I am Abdulaziz.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to the highlights at this hour. Let's start with the first one here that says, I never made money from investment in my private university, says Atiku.
Stamp duty, presidency debunks allegation of trapped 89 trillion naira.
Ghanaian slam Wizkid for shunning concert. And now the details.
The details? So, Senna, you can take the details.
Okay, fantastic. All right, founder of the American University of Nigeria's Schools and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, says he has never made money from his investment in the AUN school system. He said instead, he always requested that any surplus funds be reinvested in the expansion and improvement of the schools to maintain their world-class status. Now, Atiku Abubakar stated this at the weekend during a school improvement project presentation and alumni fund dinner hosted by the American University of Nigeria Academy in Abuja as part of activities marking the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the schools. The AUN schools presently comprise the Academy, that's Nigerian and British track, the Charter School, that's the American track, and Elementary and Early Learning Center, that's the preschool cadres.
Meanwhile, the presidency has dismissed the allegation of missing 89.09 trillion stamp duty, describing the Committee on the Reconciliation and Recovery of All Stamp Duties as illegal. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, said this while responding to some allegations made by Honorable Muhammad Gudaji, a federal lawmaker who said he is secretary of the committee. In an interview with journalists in Abuja, Gudaji had accused the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, and some other agencies of making efforts to frustrate investigation done to the recovery of 89 trillion stamp duty revenue. He said the committee was formed when he approached the president on a research conducted by a School of Banking Honors on stamp duties in 2013. But in an interview with Daily Trust, Shehu said the committee was dissolved on the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari. He added that nothing gave credence to wild accusations made against the administration by Gudaji.
All right, and popular Nigerian Afrobeat artist Ayodeji Balogun, professionally known as Wizkid, has left lots of music Ghanaian fans angry after he did not show up at the Accra Sports Stadium, a venue for his music concert in the country. Now, according to reports, the singer was meant to perform at the stadium on Saturday, the 10th of December, but left his fans confused after the technical team began to disassemble their equipment at 4 a.m. the next day. According to eyewitnesses, who took to their social media accounts to post videos, pictures, and other happenings at the scheduled event. Wizkid's band and his famous disc jockey, DJ Tunes, were in attendance at the stadium to give fans an outstanding performance and to increase their expectations. And with that, we wrap up the highlights at this hour and move on to more stories.
Now, the current inflation ravaging the country is continually taking its toll on Nigerians and have aggravated poverty in the country. The insecurity in the country compounds the situation, leading to high cost of living and citizens' inability to feed themselves properly. In Osun State, many residents have stopped buying fish and resorted to animal skin, popularly known as Bamo. Hamid Oyebode from Osun reports.
The price of foodstuff in the market have continued to skyrocket, with both sellers and buyers complaining bitterly. Many attributed this to inflation. Most of the food consumed by Nigerians, including rice, fish, and vegetable oil, are mostly imported. Local farmers were incapacitated due to activities of bandits in the northern parts of the country, which led to insufficient locally produced food. Traders at Akindeko Market in Osogbo, Osun State, said the price of foodstuff has gone up, resulting to low patronage by consumers.
A bundle of airy fish is now between 28,000 naira and 29,000 naira. A bundle of mackerel fish that was 12,000 naira some years ago is now 55,000 naira. Prices of items have multiplied by 3 to 4 times. It's beyond expectations. We only need God's intervention. Prices of foodstuff have gone up. A bag of rice suddenly jumped from 32,000 naira to 42,000 naira. We are not making sales because people could not afford it. It is really affecting the business adversely. Government should help us to address the problem. Most people cannot afford fish nowadays. 1,000 naira fish is very small. Meanwhile, father, mother, children manage themselves with 200 naira or more. We beg government to make things easy for citizens.
Kehinde Popola and Ajagbe Bolaji said their new strategy is to only feed once or at most twice in a day.
It's not necessary to eat rice every day. It's not necessary to eat bread every day. If I get yam, I will take it as a food. So that is advice for the people.
Everybody knows the country we are, so you just have to manage yourself. At least the 3 daily meals that you're supposed to take, at least if you can take 2, maybe morning and the night.
The residents called on government to address inflation to make life bearable for them. Hamid Oyegbade, Trust TV News, Osogbo.
All right, thank you so much, Hamid, for that report. We'll move on to more stories. The campaigns ahead of the elections next year have gained momentum in the last few weeks, with candidates making promises that they will change the lives of citizens once they get to office. But the issues remain largely uninterrogated, and personal slurs have dominated the campaigns. Now, in this report, Kehinde Amodu looks at the issues surrounding fuel subsidy and the revival of the nation's refineries and what candidates are saying.
The National Assembly is the bastion of democracy, which has in front of it a raised-up hand with a mallet in it. It signifies the lawmaking process, which is carried out on a daily basis since Nigerian lawmakers are engaged full-time. Despite their full engagement, the 469 lawmakers have not found a reply to a crucial problem since the advent of democracy in 1999. For over 23 years now, the sellers of jerrycans have fed off dislocations in the petroleum sector. No government has so far found a solution to the problem of fuel scarcity. This regime, which doubted that fuel subsidy even existed, has been forced to acknowledge its presence. Another election year has rolled in, and fuel subsidy is one of the burning issues candidates have to address. Most presidential candidates are in agreement that subsidy must go because of the huge amount it gobs annually.
Subsidy is organized crime. I will not allow any form of criminality as president of Nigeria. The amount of fuel they say we consume cannot be consumed by this country. There's an empirical evidence. We are about the same size as Pakistan. Pakistan, we are about 210, 220. Pakistan is about the same size. they have more roads. We probably have same number of vehicles, or they have even more. Yet, their fuel consumption is a third of ours. So who is drinking the balance? That's where we'll start.
You see, we are very clear on the issue of fuel subsidy. When we realize that there is too much corruption involved on the issue of subsidy, too much of it. Now that's our first place of call. Once that is done, the second stage is look at it holistically and see what can be done about it. But I can tell you, no government can survive with the amount of money that this government is spending on subsidy. It can't work.
Subsidy has three components to it. Component number one is why should it be there at all? Because of the exaggerated costs of supply. And that is linked back to that question on the refineries. Second question, which I think is even more important, is the fraud component of it.
But are there any specific strategies to manage the backlash of fuel subsidy removal?
If you want to withdraw, you can say you are going to have an administrative price, which is the subsidized price. You are going to have economic price. The economic price will be paid by those who, the private consumers, like you, having your vehicles, you travel, you go for visiting friends or holidays or whatever you want to do as a private person. But the commercial vehicles, that if you increase the price of fuel to them, it will have multiplier effect because transportation will go up and that will affect the price of goods and services. So you can contain that. And how do you contain it? You can introduce, like I said, this two-tier system.
Subsidy benefits the rich and famous because they are the ones who have 5 cars. People in my village don't have. They want education. They want health. They want this thing. So we will remove it. But in removing it, you must say what you are providing. I will use some of the resources, for other resources, to make sure that we come up with local refineries, which is not rocket science.
Closely tied to fuel subsidy is making the refineries work in light of the glaring hardship importation of fuel has introduced to everyday life.
There are two ways to look at it. You will have legacy refineries, the existing ones. One in Warri, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Kaduna. Now, that's one. If you do smaller refineries that are modular in nature and you can actually run section by section, in 24 months, you will do the commissioning for the moment you do the foundation laying. So, how many of 24 months have been in the life of this administration?
Candidates may be keeping the specifics of solving these twin problems to their chests because they don't want their competitors copying their strategies. But such reticence may rob the citizens of the opportunity to vote in the candidate that can really turn things around. From the federal capital, Kehinde Amudu, Trust TV News.
And as the world celebrates the whole Human Rights Day, on Saturday, Nigerians have called on government at various levels to improve actions on the protection of lives and property and people's rights in the country. They also ask people to guard their utterances to avoid breaching the peace. Salis Lawan takes a look at the freedom of speech in this digital era. His report.
Technological advancement in the country has produced new forms of social conflict. The digital revolution is no exception, lowering the cost of distribution and content creation between ordinary individuals and the mainstream media. Some broadcasters say although there is a need for the mainstream media to balance their stories, some bylaws require a total overhaul.
Whatever comes out of your mouth is something that you can defend. Therefore, you don't go about perhaps making opinion based on without facts or figures. you just concoct something and then you say it. It's very irresponsible.
Broadcasting. People have fundamental human rights to react to whatever situation they find themselves, the topic we use. You know, we are agenda setters. They have the right to seek for opinion. They have the right to contribute to any issue at stake.
Business of journalism is not like every other business. You must go with the ethical standards. But unfortunately, we still allow ourselves to be immersed in terms of either where you're coming from, who owns the business outfit, what the person's agenda is, what the person's thoughts is, what the person's mission is. All of these are impediments that we have to take away from the system to allow for us to do our jobs.
Meanwhile, some residents speaking off camera on the theme of the World Human Rights Day 2022, Dignity, Freedom and Justice for All, urged the government to revisit the issues that led to the NSAS nationwide protest against the police in 2020 and other human rights-related issues. A legal practitioner in Yola, Sunday Wigira, speaks on the responsibilities that come with freedom of speech.
You should know that as much as you have rights guaranteed by the Constitution, so also the other person. So as much as you cherish your own, you should also know the other cherishes his own too. And so long as you are looking up to the government to protect your own human rights, you also have a duty to protect the right of any other person.
They believe that spirit of activism will not die until the rights of Nigerians have been absolutely protected. From Yola, Salis Lawan, Trust TV News.
Well, sadly, a lot of Nigerians don't even know, their basic human rights. They just go about living life and not really knowing, what rights they have. It's really, really sad.
And human rights are fundamentals to human existence.
Exactly. So they need a lot of enlightenment, and they also need to read a lot and understand what these rights are saying and what they're all about.
Exactly.
All right, with that, we'll take a quick breather. When we return, it'll be time for the newspaper review. Stick around.
Where you find that they must look at the same. Not necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV and it's time for the newspaper review. Let's take a look at the stories on the dailies this morning. We'll begin with Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here says bloodbath in Southeast. Police mobilize against IPOP terror. And we have writers here that says how 24 were killed in Imo, Enugu, others. Witnesses and Miete Allah. We are in panic, says Northerners in Southeast. Division in separatist group over sit-at-home order. And agitators digging abysmal pits for themselves, says Ohaneze. And you can find details of that story on page 4. 89 trillion naira stamp duty recovery move sparks controversy. We also have new cashless policy will discourage rigging, says Sanusi. 13 injured, 23 houses razed in Jigawa herders attack, and you can find details of that story on page 6. We also have a pictorial of a funeral prayer in Jos, the Plateau State capital, for one of the people killed by gunmen at Omona in Imo State yesterday, and the deceased picture inserted, and his name is Awal Abdul Salam. We also have gunmen abduct 16 wedding guests in the Federal Capital Territory. Details on page 12. Ganduje's X-Men to lead NNPP's governorship campaign in Kano. And we also have bandits kill 21 in Bauchi and Katsina states. These are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, up next is our leadership newspaper, where the lead story says 2023 Tinubu hits back at Atiku over security watch comment. And the story has riders ask Nigerians to be wary of PDP candidates' sugar-coated promises. You are unfit to be president, Atiku replies, pledges prudent use of security vote at Channels TV's The People's Town Hall. And just below the lead story, we have photo of President Muhammadu Buhari, Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari, and Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed shortly before departing Katsina State for Washington, D.C. ahead of U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit yesterday. And of course, at the top of the page, Nigeria's think tank Agora Policy decries exclusion of women, youth. Details of that story is on page 7. And then Presidency Committee differ on trapped 89.09 trillion stamp duties. Then below the masthead, investors abandon 250 billion auto gas project intervention fund. By the right of the page, PAP, that is a presidential amnesty program to absorb ex-agitators in MDA's security agencies. Details of that story is on page 7. And lastly, iPhone users to pay $11 per month for Twitter blue checkmark. Story on page 19. So these are some of the stories in today's leadership newspapers.
All right, let's move on to the Nation newspaper. We have the lead story here saying Wike, same faith, not reason to dump South candidates. And we have writers on that story that says Tinubu Shatima, tickets will be fair to all. I'll reset economy for faster growth, says Tinubu, and President drums up support for APC candidates. We also have Ipman to get petrol direct from NNPCL. Oil giant in move to end product shortage, and you can find details of that story on page 8. At the top of the page there, Lekki Deep Seaport promoters shop for $800 million to link rail line. Presidency defends Emefiele over alleged 89.1 trillion naira stamp duty collection. We also have INEC begins PVC distribution today. Niger Delta slam Atiku for sending Okowa to Jonathan. And just below the name plate there, nobody can split G5 allies, says Bode George. And writers here says Tambuwal's overture to autumn futile. And I won't vote for Atiku, says PDP chieftain vows. We also have pay salary arrears owed by Aregbe Shola, Oshun workers tell Adeleke, and NDLEA seizes drugs in powdered milk, baby food at Lagos airport. These are some of the stories on the Nation newspaper.
Up next is Punch newspaper, and the major story for this for today is withdrawal limits will cripple campaign fund, say parties. Parties to write CBN for waiver say cashless policy will choke political process fundraising. If Buhari had no access to funding in 2014, he would never have been president, says PDP. Policy will create logistic problems. Paying party agents nationwide will be difficult, say ADC and ADP. And then just below that, oil production hits 1.18 million barrels per day, highest in 7 months. Story on page 29. On the top of the page, 439 foreign trained doctors failed assessment exam, says MDCN, that is Medical and Dental Health Council of Nigeria. I can't understand Boko Haram phenomenon, says Atiku. 33 states lack landfills, dispose waste openly, according to a report. And then debt servicing to gulp 123% of 2023 revenue. Coming down on the page, there is a picture showing choir of the Apostolic Faith Church in 2022 Christmas concert at Jabi, Abuja on Sunday. And then below that, NNPC raises major oil marketers from 7 to 27. 15 drug dealers caught in notorious Lagos community. These are stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, next is Vanguard newspaper, and the lead story here says 2023, Atiku Tambuwal to in verbal war over bid for power and wealth. We also have the writers here that says Tinubu's rags to riches story hogwash. It says Atiku's aid. My experience, democratic credentials prepared me for presidency, says Atiku. Why Tinubu is not fit to be Nigeria's president. Beware of Atiku's sugar-coated promises, says Tinubu. Says I'll be a fair, just president to Nigerians. Vows to end poverty, insecurity. Seems to be a war of words here. All right, so there is a pictorial of motor insurance and why NICOM and insurers backpedaled on planned 50% premium hike. That's an inside story. Hike approved, awaiting minister's approval. Only 3 million of 12 million vehicles have valid insurance. Premium income reverses upward trend, falls 36% in second quarter 2022. And just below that infograph there, on 625 billion naira refunds, SERAP gives 9 oil-producing states 7 days to disclose spending. On the second Niger bridge here, we have heavy-duty vehicles won't use it for now, says FRSC. Nigeria's polarization worrisome, says Kuka. Others. 6 dead, 25 injured in Kogi auto crash. At the top of the page, we have more stories. Security threats to 2023 polls. How to end attacks on INEC facilities, say security experts. We also have PDP crisis, not war of attrition, but political disagreement, says Tambuwal. On $2 billion trapped funds, operations of more foreign airlines under threat. Niger Delta Group sue Buhari, others over NDDC board as Warri Council of Chiefs urges president to recall fresh list. And just below that story, unemployability of Nigerian graduates worrisome, says federal government. And we just have a few more stories on Vanguard newspaper. Anti-Thuggery Committee demolishes APC campaign office in Gusau. Details of that story on page 25. And stamp duty recovery. Buhari panel legitimate, scribe replies Garba Shehu. And these are some of the stories on Vanguard newspaper.
Okay, up next is we're moving on to Guardian newspaper, where the top story this morning says foreign airlines retain 200% high fares. Stranded fund hits $551 million. The story has some more details. Tough choices for travelers with 2 million, 3 million naira economy class tickets. Nigeria tops countries with highest block funds globally. carriers got $120 million, not $265 million from CBN, says IATA. Lawmakers urge understanding as travel experts tax FG on obligations to airlines. Analysts prompt Buhari on Nigeria's priority ahead of U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. And on top of the page, The Guardian wins sports other awards at them. Then Nigeria, third improved country on African visa openness ranking. Story on page 3. And terrorists attack Kaduna communities. Story on page 9. And then lastly, 2 Borno councils under Boko Haram control, according to the Speaker, I think, of the State Assembly. Details of that story is on page 2. Well, that's it for Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, so next is Daily Independent newspaper, and we have the lead story here that says federal government's tight fiscal policies in 2023 may put businesses on edge. We have a writer that says analysts say they will lead to more cases of job cuts. And at the top of the page there, APGA asks members to boycott stakeholders meeting called by Soludo. And North retaining presidency after Buhari worse than Muslim ticket, says Wike. Below the pictorial there, we have PDP crisis. Tambuwal moves to broker peace between G5 and party leadership. AI condemns military invasion of Rivers community, demands prosecution of security operatives involved. And below that story, Tinubu's allies worry over Buhari's attitude to 2023 presidential poll, says presidents backing Tinubu but won't make poll do or die affair, says Keyamo. We also have Anambra government assures returnees of safety at Christmas. Details of that on page 29. And on the footnote there, we have NDLEA intercepts Brazil returnee with parcels of cocaine, others in powdered milk and baby food. These are the stories on Daily Independent.
Up next is the Daily Sun newspaper, which is our last paper for this morning. No going back on Obi, Middle Belt Forum says Obasanjo Adebanjo Obi extol Modo at 70. The details of that story is on page 47. And below that, NDLEA arrests Brazil returnee with parcels of cocaine in baby food at Lagos Airport. Story on page 5. Tinubu Atiku fight dirty. That's the major story this morning on the Sun newspaper. He will destroy Nigeria, APC candidate warns. You are not fit to rule, says PDP candidate. And below that, there is a picture showing former President Olusegun Obasanjo with Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu State, presidential candidate of Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and former President General Ohaneze Ndibo, and the celebrant Chief Sir John Inia Nwodo, second left, and leader of Afenifere Chief Ayo Adebanjo at the Thanksgiving Mass to mark Nwodo's birthday at St. Mulumba Catholic Church, New Haven, Enugu, yesterday. And below that, the retaining presidency in the north is as bad as Muslim ticket. Story on page 46. And then PDP crisis, not war, but misunderstanding, Temple tells Otom. At Obiora Okonko's book launch, Anyim, Saraki, Nwosu, others push for true federalism. Details of that story is on page 46. And then Boko Haram, there is no forest in Sambisa, says Atiku. The CEO, Imo governor at 64, 3 years in office, Buhari and I. It's an interview, I think, on page 45 and 44 and 45. And then lastly, on the front page of the Sun newspaper this morning, attack on police, Enugu CP orders personnel to remain in barracks. Story on page 5. These are details of the stories on the front page of the Sun newspaper. And with that, we wrap up, looking at the pages of these newspapers, and we'll be going into analysis of some of the major stories that made it to the front pages this morning. And we'll be joined shortly by Mukhtar Suleiman, a public affairs analyst, and with him we'll be analyzing some of these major news stories.
Mukhtar is already, has already joined us. He's a public affairs analyst, and his name is Mukhtar Suleiman. Hello, good morning, Mukhtar. Thank you for joining us this morning. All right, so let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, there seems to be a lot of stories on security on Daily Trust and some other papers this morning, like we have that of the 13 injured and 23 houses razed in Jigawa herders attack. We also have that of gunmen abducting 16 wedding guests in the FCT, bandits killing 21 in Bauchi and Katsina, and then the lead story that talks about the bloodbath in Southeast and police mobilizing against IPOB terror. Where are we on tackling security now, as of now?
Good morning. First things first, I want to apologize for not in person today. I had a very long flight yesterday, coming back into the country, and it was, I think I'm still exhausted from it. Basically, I think about this is the Jigawa state story. We know how sort of secured, if I can put it that way, Jigawa over the years in the face of that has actually ravaged the northern part of the country for over a decade now, and seeing that area, and I'm hoping that the state governor can actually swing into action as much as Sule Lamido did when the first wave of attacks started. That aside, I think the government needs to do significantly well in terms of curbing insecurity. They should, for being honest. And the thing that they're doing, as much as they're doing well, but they aren't. We need to actually check that with the security arm of the government, because the insecurity is encroaching into other places, and that is not something that we want, especially to the general. They have to guarantee safety of lives and properties of people as we're going to go to the ballot boxes to cast. Guys, I don't know how that's going to play out eventually, but I'm hoping that.
Okay. Mukhtar, if you look at another issue that is also very much prominent in all this is how the killings and maybe the attacks are spread, like from Bauchi in the southeast, in the northeast, to Katsina, to Jigawa, and then of course the southeast now with this IPOB reign of terror. With this, can we say that do we have adequate security men to respond to these killings, to this insecurity that spread quite far apart from each other?
Understand the context of Nigeria's insecurity program. People said great effort by one group, how they can actually lead this state. But I think it has more to do with the non-child government and the security infrastructures than it has to do with the which is something that we need. Like this is actually well coordinated. It isn't. The southern part of the country have their own grievance and what they are the issues that the southeastern parts rather have their own issues that they are dealing in terms of insecurity. The northern they also have their issues that they also in terms of insecurity. And find out what the nexus is and how to actually nip it in the bud, because this is actually escalating beyond how do I put this? It's actually growing. It's a growing tension. It's a growing issue that needs to actually be looked into by the federal government, and how sparse it has become, especially earlier. We're going into the general elections. We need to ensure that there is actually adequate security infrastructure for people to safe. Okay, it's okay for them to go out to go and cast their franchise.
All right, now, just to add up to what you're saying, a few state governments have actually pledged safety, this December. We have on opinion on page 16 of Daily Trust, Arigbe Shola's pledge on safety by December, and also the Anambra State government pledging safety by December. Now, on the editorial here, we have CBN before implementing withdrawal limit policy. And I would like to link that on the lead story, with the lead story on the Punch newspaper that talks about withdrawal limits, will cripple campaign funding, says political parties. And they say that it will create logistics problem, paying party agents nationwide will also be difficult. What's your take on this?
I don't think it's as difficult as they're actually saying that it could be. Conversation with one of my friends when the policy just came out, and I was telling them that nobody is saying you cannot spend up to 1 billion in a day. They are just saying make sure that it is done via mobile banking. Make sure so that there's a trail and there's of the money. And the money can also be taxed, of course. Taxing is also a very important part of this whole procedure of the policy. But we know how illicit financial in election financing. If you know that you're not doing anything illegally, have a wiring to people that you actually say you want to actually give money to. Yes, we have a large number of people that are unbanked in the country. I agree with. But systems and structure. So if this policy is there as a system and as a structure, what it simply means is that those people that are unbanked will become banked. They'll be forced to become banked because that's what the policy is going to do. It's going to increase the people that are not that don't have banking bank, and also
that are
it's going
unbanked,
to
that are
ensure
not
that we
covered
can
by
actually trace. It's going to ensure that we can actually trace money that are actually that are actually being used within the economy. So I actually think it's a very good policy. Yes, will it affect election financing, of course, but I think it's for the good. That will how much campaign police for campaign, where the monies are going to. It's easy for us to actually track illicit financial flow in election financing, which is a very big problem, because I remember that we had a meeting with the Code of Conduct Bureau some weeks ago about this illicit financial flow when it comes to election financing, and they were telling us that it's as if there's a deliberate effort by the National Assembly to ensure that they don't have adequate resources to actually track these things, because they don't have money for anything. They don't have a printer in that office. So we have to do more if the entire sector can come together to actually support the CCB in this act, then it's actually a very good thing. So I actually do think that, yeah, this is actually a good policy, and it should actually. I hope the BN does not actually for the pressure that they actually receive from the political parties.
All right, just before Abdulaziz takes the next story, we'll just breeze through the city and crime page. We have gunmen abducting 16 wedding guests in the FCT as well. We have 6 killed, 25 injured in Kogi auto crash. Man, 75 years, arrested for defiling 4-year-old niece in Nasarawa. And I beat my neighbor for pretending to be a pastor. We also have on Xmas, police bans firework in Edo State, and police arrest 2 robbery suspects in Kwara. We also have pregnant woman, others nabbed with hemp cocaine. These are some of the stories on city and crime of Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Yeah, the world full of so many crimes. And well, moving on to Punch newspaper, and there is this story, Mukhtar, that says oil production hits 1.18 million barrels per day, highest in 7 months. Would you say the controversial pipeline contract given to the former agitator Tom Polo is now paying off? Would you say, should we begin to celebrate, or what do you think is responsible for this rise?
False dilemma fallacy about these things. It will be, I feel it's a premature deduction to say it's as a result of that particular contract, and that's why we're actually having a pump in the oil price. Situations in Nigeria where it is not within policy that actually led to the success of something. So I don't think, I wouldn't say it is until the government or the NNPC tells us exactly what happened and how that translated to what we are having right now. it is a good thing. Is it a good thing? Yeah, it is a good thing. Doesn't make it a bad thing. We need to actually interrogate properly. We need to actually understand what happened first before we begin to say it's as a result of this particular policy or it's
Okay, Mukhtar. So with that, let's move on to, you know, we actually still, there was a report on that talking about fuel and fuel subsidy, and thank God that the fuel queues have actually subsided right now. But then IPMAN, as of now, is to actually get petrol directly from the NNPCL, and you know, this is the oil giant's move to end a shortage of fuel. Share your thoughts on that?
It's so funny how I was discussing with somebody in the government sometime last week. We met outside of the country, and then he was telling me how this is what and it's a popular rumor now. How all of the four Qs are just deliberate strategies to see how the with us getting used to or accustomed to the price, so that it doesn't become when eventually do. I think that's a very, very manipulative move, and it is totally wrong. My position about subsidy removal from the beginning has always been that if you remove, I also don't like forced subsidy. I think, but if you're going to remove the forced subsidy, ensure that it's adequate power supply in the country and the efficient and effective intra item of the ladder are not that affected. So going to looking the current happening in the country and how it has actually trickled to what IPMAN is trying to say and all of that. I think it's really, really sad and pathetic what's really happening in the country right now. The government agencies themselves have toward decisions like this. They're using the ghetto approach for government policy. That's actually a very, very big problem that we actually need to look into. I'm really hoping that this can actually, and I'm really hoping that we can actually push back up when they eventually do what they are going to do without actually letting it slide, because action should have consequences. Sometimes in democracy, that those consequences come from the large population of the country, which is us.
Okay, now Mukhtar, let's move on to politics, and of course the front pages this morning are full of war words, you know, and as the Sun captured it in its own very unique tabloid manner, that Tinubu Atiku fight dirty, and of course you can see the dirt all over, you know, Vanguard and other newspapers. Still, as we've seen earlier in this show, you know, one of the packages we watched, you know, speak about how policy is still suffering at the expense of personal attacks and all these, you know, grandstanding by all the candidates. What's happening? Is this something that you expected? Is this something that is that has some consequences in our, you know, in terms of how voters actually access their own candidates and make a choice? Mukhtar, can you hear me? Okay, it's like we're having a little glitch with, you know, the network getting Mukhtar, and of course we'll continue looking at some other stories on the. Okay, we've gotten Mukhtar back. Can you hear me, Mukhtar?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, do I have to go back to the question, or you've had the question I asked?
No, I got the question.
Okay, so I was asking about the politics and how the candidates, the two major candidates, at each other's throats, you know, regarding their own personalities and all that, rather than discussing policies. I said, is this something that is healthy? Do you think this is healthy for us and for the electorate? Or what is your take on that?
This anyway in the program, we need to actually check the ad hominem approach that people are using in campaigns. Does it mean that it's going to stop? Not really. I think character attack, character assassination is one very component of political campaigns anywhere in the world. We cannot take it away, but we can to a barest minimum. And the large, like salespeople, sell something to us, the larger population.
All right, well, we seem to be having issues with our connection, but I think with that, we have come to the end of the newspaper review right here on Daybreak. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Suleiman, public affairs analyst, for joining us to analyze some of the stories on the national dailies. We'll take a break, and when we come back at the top of the hour, the show continues.
But in a situation where you find that they look at this, not necessarily tribal or regional. But I have said that.
Thank you very much for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV, and it's another hour, and it's another Monday, of course, and today is Monday, the 12th of December, 2022. The year is gradually coming to a close, and we hope your plans for the year are wrapping up as well, and you are, in very good shape. I am Abdulaziz, coming to you live from the studios of Trust TV from the capital, Abuja.
And I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll move on to the highlights at this hour. I never made money from investment in my private university, says Atiku.
Stamp duty presidency debunks allegation of trapped 89 trillion naira.
Ghanaians slam Wizkid for shunning concert.
Now the details. Founder of the American University of Nigeria Schools and presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, says he has never made money from his investment in the AUN schools system. He said instead he always requested that any surplus funds be reinvested in the expansion and improvement of the schools to maintain their world-class status. Atiku Abubakar stated this at the weekend during a school improvement project presentation and alumni fund dinner hosted by the American University of Nigeria Academy in Abuja as part of activities marking the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the schools. The AUN schools presently comprise the Academy, as Nigerian and British track, the Charter School, American track, and the Elementary and Early Learning Center, that is preschool cadres.
All right, away from that story, the presidency has dismissed the allegation of missing 89.09 trillion naira stamp duty, describing the Committee on the Reconciliation and Recovery of All Stamp Duties as illegal. The senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, said this while responding to some allegations made by Honorable Muhammad Gudaji, a federal lawmaker who said he is the secretary of the committee. In an interview with journalists in Abuja, Gudaji had said the Central Bank of Nigeria, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and some other agencies were making efforts to frustrate investigations done to recover the 89 trillion naira stamp. Now, he said the committee was formed when he approached the president on a research conducted by the School of Banking Honors on stamp duties in 2013. But in an interview with Daily Trust, Shehu said the committee was dissolved on the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari, and he added that nothing gave credence to wild accusations made against the administration of Gudaji.
Now moving on, popular Nigerian Afrobeat artist Ayodeji Balogun, professionally known as Wizkid, has left lots of Ghanaian music fans angry for not showing up at the Accra Sports Stadium, a venue for his music concert in the country. According to reports, the singer was meant to perform at the stadium on Saturday, the 10th of December, but left his fans confused after the technical team began to disassemble their equipment at 4 a.m. the next day. According to eyewitnesses who took to their social media accounts to post videos, pictures, and other happenings at the scheduled event, Wizkid's band and his famous disc jockey, DJ Tunes, were in attendance at the stadium to give fans an outstanding performance and to increase their expectations.
All right, and that's it on the highlights at this hour. We'll move on to more packages and stories. The Zamfara State chapter of the People's Democratic Party is accusing the state government of connivance with the state's police command to arrest and illegally detain two of its chieftain, Ambassador Mariga Marafa and Ikira Bilbis, senatorial candidates of the PDP, Zamfara Central, in prison. Now, the PDP claim that the court had refused to grant the two chieftains of their party bail despite efforts to secure their release. The report.
The People's Democratic Party, PDP, is calling on President Muhammadu Buhari and Inspector General of Police, IGP Alkali Baba, to intervene in what it described as illegal arrest and detention of two of the party chieftains in prison by the state government in connivance with the police. The acting chairman of the PDP claimed that the party had written to the European Union, Human Rights Commission, Department of State Services, DSS, National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Munguno, over the harassment and intimidation of its members in Zamfara State, but nothing has been done regarding its complaint. He said democracy is being threatened in Zamfara State, northwest Nigeria, hence the Inspector General of Police, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, should take proactive steps to rescue the situation in the state before the 2023 general elections.
We have written specifically to the DSS, we have written to the police, we have written to the Office of the Civil Defense, we have written to the National Security Advisor, We have taken our protest to the European Union. We have taken our protest to the American Embassy, including Human Rights, Amnesty International. We're still waiting. Nothing has been done.
The party appealed to all members and supporters to continue to remain law-abiding as efforts are being made to secure the release of their chieftains in prison and protect members from harassment and intimidation from the ruling All Progressive Congress APC in the state. The Zamfara State Police Command, however, declined to comment on the allegation leveled against them by the PDP of conniving with the state government to arrest its members unlawfully in the state.
Some APC supporters in Bauchi State want the name of former governor of the state, Mohammed Abubakar, removed from the party's presidential campaign council for allegedly hobnobbing with opposition in the state recently. The group made the call at a press conference on Sunday at the NUJ Secretariat in Bauchi. Trust TV's Adamu Imam complete the story.
The leader of the APC supporters group, Ismaila Musa, has accused the immediate past governor of Bauchi, Mohammed Abubakar, over his comment at a reception dinner organized by the incumbent governor, Bala Mohammed, to honor him on his recent elevation to senior advocate of Nigeria. Musa said that the action of the former governor is an indication of anti-party activities.
The APC and its candidate El Mashal organized a set forth for the son, being an APC member and also a presidential campaign council member. And he failed to attend that, and he attended that of the PDP. So to us, it's a slap on our face.
According to him, as an APC stakeholder and a former governor, Abubakar should not have made such comment without consulting party executives at the state level.
And as politician, directly or indirectly, the words to us sounds as campaigning for the incumbent. Thank you.
Abubakar's re-election bid failed in 2019 and is now a member of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Council from Bauchi State. Adam Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
All right, the Independent National Electoral Commission has given assurances to residents of Katsina State that it will conduct elections in all the 34 local government areas of the state. Now, the assurance is coming against the backdrop of fears that elections may not hold in local government areas prone to persistent bandit attacks. Abdullahi Ahmadi completes the report.
The electoral umpire allays fears that elections may not hold in some wards in Katsina State due to insecurity, saying the rumor has no basis. The electoral umpire, however, assures stakeholders that in the event of worsening insecurity in some communities, INEC will relocate the affected polling units to safer places to allow eligible voters exercise their franchise.
Let me also take the opportunity to bring an update as to what we are doing in some of the areas in which we are facing some security challenge. The Electoral Act 2022 again has made clear provisions for the conduct of election in emergency situations. In specific terms, Section 24 of the Electoral Act 2022 provides for the Commission to, as far as is practicable, ensure that no persons displayed as a result of an emergency are disenfranchised.
On the collection of permanent voters' cards, which is expected to commence on Monday, the resident electoral commissioner Yahya Makarfi charged eligible voters to collect their PVCs immediately. The resident electoral commissioner said INEC offices will remain opened for the collection exercise across the 34 local government areas of Katsina State.
The collection of voters' cards will commence on the 12th of this month and it will end on the 22nd of January 2023.
Many residents have been asking questions about the possibility or otherwise of conducting elections in security frontline local governments of Katsina State. Abdullahi Ismail Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Well, that's for this story from Katsina. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll go into the more discussions on the program this morning. We have some interesting conversations to, with some guests that we'll be having later in the show. Do stay with us.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. We're live in the Federal Capital Territory, and right now it's time for our first discussion, and it has to do with health. Now, Universal Health Day, also known as Universal Health Coverage Day, marked on 12th December, is the annual rallying point for the growing movement for universal health to ensure that everyone everywhere has access to quality health services without financial hardship. Now, the year's campaign comes at a critical time when countries across the world are rebuilding from the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic while facing many other crises such as natural disasters and conflicts. Now, to discuss this, we have joining us via Zoom from Burning Kebbi, Dr. Jafar Agi Mohammed, Executive Secretary and CEO, Kebbi Contributory Healthcare Management Agency. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jafar. And let's go into the discussion by asking about perhaps your own take or assessment regarding our own effort as a country, in Nigeria, to achieve this universal health coverage, which is a very lofty, goal of the world generally, with the, especially with the millennium and later the Sustainable Development Goals. Can you share your thoughts about what are the hindrances, or how is the journey so far with achieving the universal health coverage for all Nigerians?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I must thank you for reminding our viewers about the impact of on the status of health as a very important factor in economics worldwide. This has shown that health is not an individualistic issue. It's something that has to do with the greater society. The importance of the NHIA Act, which, among other things, health insurance mandates all residents of Nigeria to be of priority. It's no more key into the health insurance scheme under the new NHIA. Therefore, these show UHC general, which is, of course, the target number 8, SDG 3, is maintaining or achieving the. To me, UHC, of course, say, well, by so yeah, we are going to. It has begun. Most of the stakeholders are impressive with what is happening now. The introduction of the coupled with the National Health Act of 2014 and the introduction of this social health insurance care agency is one of them, and is enshrined in the new Act in Section 30. So I think we are happy that now we are getting it, we are putting it direction and right saddles. The NHIA DG has introduced what he calls the which, if we look at all the insurance agencies, healthcare management agency, one of the 3 main is the value system. In our own society or Nigeria, we have helping one another to achieve prosperity is one of the most important things, and of course, health. That is why even in our in the Bible 9, we should be our brother's keepers. In Corinthians, we have, you know, the Bible called caregivers, you know, and you find a lot of places where that value of anybody who say persons people that are merciful to them and so on and so forth. So these values that we have, we should endeavor to assist one another in achieving health and greater prosperity. And the second agenda, transparency and accountability in whatever we do. You know, Nigerians, we seem to be very important ingredients and enshrining that in whatever we do in social, the needful change. And the third agenda that the professor tandem with is the of course, rating our bid to achieve UHC, universal health coverage. The important pillar is about population service coverage and also ensuring equity in achieving the qualitative and efficient protection, untold financial hardships in accessing that.
Okay, Doctor.
Equity is the key word. Yes, ma'am. All
right, Doctor. Now, talking about, you know, the healthcare, you know, service delivery, we know there's brain drain in Nigeria. Now, as regards to brain drain, can you actually tell us what the government is doing to ensure that, you know, that the health services are not confronted with crippling, staff shortages?
Well, the fiscal space in the Nigerian economy is a very difficult one. I don't envy our leaders when they're between health and education sectors. Social health insurance is a panacea to most of the problems we have in the health sector. The informal sector of the health, a lot of non-governmental will come into the we have in the health resource for health, but also all issues like the issues in and so on and so forth. All the health system will be taken care of. Formal sector of my state, Kebbi State, have just half of the, which is about 2.5 million people, paying just a meager for in a month. State social health insurance.
And doctor, it's like we're having challenge with connection with you.
Into the health system.
Dr. Jafar. Dr. Jafar, I'm sorry, it's like we are having a network glitch, and perhaps we have to bring this to an end. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. We hope to have you some other time, to shed some light on the program on some of these issues that you are raising. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the discussions on another interesting topic this morning. Do stay with us.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Now, with that, we'll move on to our next discussion for today. Open defecation is the emptying of bowels in the open without the use of properly designed structures built for the handling of human waste, such as toilets. Now, open defecation is particularly associated with rural and poverty-stricken regions of the world, especially sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. Now, according to the findings from the 2021 WASH National Routine Mapping Survey report, 47 million people in Nigeria practice open defecation. According to 2018, the Nigerian president in 2018, the Nigerian president declared a state of emergency in the water, sanitation and hygiene sector, demonstrating political will at the highest level of government and launched a national campaign tagged Clean Nigeria, use the toilet to jumpstart the country's journey towards becoming open defecation free by 2025. Now let's discuss this particular issue, and we have joining us in the studio the Executive Director of Center for Environmental Sustainability and Development Awareness, Mr. Olushola Babalola, joining us in the studio. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, thank you for having me on your show.
Good, thank you for coming. Now, how far are we, or how close are we to achieving the open defecation-free society by 2025? Just 2 years away. Is it something that we, with what is on ground? Last year, I say 47 million Nigerians are still, defecating, freely. What is the journey, and do you think that we can achieve this target?
Okay, thank you very much for that very important question. So far, so good. We are not there yet, because if you look at the population of people that are still prone to open defecation in Nigeria, 47 million, that's whopping. That's about a quarter, of Nigerian population. That's if we go by 180 or 200 million, that we are talking about. And this is according to the latest, survey conducted by Federal Ministry of Water Resources in collaboration with Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, which kick-started in 2018, and they have been doing this consistently. So when you try to correlate the outcome of the survey in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021, you will see that there's just a slight, difference, between what is it called, the reduction in the open defecation in Nigeria. So far, so good. The journey is not yet palatable. So we are working towards that, but I think it's something we can achieve. And that is the more reason why we need to mobilize all the stakeholders to make sure that we work towards achieving that, target. And again, for Mr. President to be bold enough to declare a state of emergency, on WASH, that's a very good step, because prior to now, we've really seen the fact that the political will is not really there. One thing is to have an issue, another thing is to accept that we have this problem, and we need to work towards ensuring that we profile lasting solutions to the problem. So, and that's what Mr. President has done, and that's what is expected of every Nigeria, either household, MDAs, or the private sector, to make sure that we work towards achieving, that target. 2025 is not far away, but it's something that we can still achieve. It's something that we can still work towards reducing it. So if we can't meet 2025 target, we have 2020 target, which is more like a global target, that we can still work towards. But I want to believe that situating, working towards ending open defecation by 2025 is a very good development from Mr. President, and we should be able to make sure that at the end of the day, at least we achieve a considerable milestone, even if we cannot, achieve a total or an open defecation-free Nigeria by 2025.
All right, but what are the social, cultural issues that affect the sustainability of, meeting that open defecation target come 2020?
Okay, there are quite a number of it, and we all know that every society has their peculiarity. There are beliefs that are not too sensible. For example, there are societies that said they don't want to share. You see male and female not sharing, the same toilet, which we can see in different parts, of Nigeria, as well as in different parts of the world too. So that is one issue. Then again, poverty is one big issue, that we need to consider when we are talking in terms of open defecation. Poverty in the sense that these are people that cannot even afford a single meal. Talk much of constructing, affordable toilet or a good sanitary facility that will help them to, probably do that. So these are things that we really need to look at and see how we can, probably bring about palliative in terms of how do we help people to make sure that they have necessary toilet in place? How do we help people to make sure that we put the right awareness there, give them the right civic education to ensure that some of these beliefs are not, really helping them in terms of, their well-being, in terms of their health and what have you. So there are quite a number of them. The belief is there, so which we really, really need to eliminate. And we need, to put up a very aggressive sensitization towards that. So because we have to correct that impression, it's only when we correct that impression, and that's why people can begin to use toilet. That's why people will begin to have faith and believe in the fact that no, nothing is going to happen at the end of the day. It's not disrespectful. For example, they will say if you are in-laws, a brother-in-law, a father-in-law, are not expected to use the same toilet as, the wife of their son. These are some of the cultural barriers that is actually driving the issue of open defecation in Nigeria. And this is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. It cut across the world. We've seen, that kind of belief in places like India and Indonesia, Bangladesh, and other African countries, even the neighboring Ghana here.
Now, okay, if you look at, if you go back to the basis or to the foundation, how harmful are these practices? Yeah, it's very harmful. We just have to say the way it is, and we all know the implication or the effect of open defecation in the society. It breeds some of these airborne diseases that we are talking about, especially children under 5 years are more prone, to the effect of open defecation, and this manifests in form of diarrhea, it manifests in form of cholera, it manifests in form of typhoid fever. So we have seen it. Because when you defecate openly and is not covered up, of course, we know the process that takes place. Decomposition will take place, and definitely when that happens, you see the microbes trying to feed on that. And when flies perch, on this, it takes, the microbe to the food, materials. Then again, if this is washed away by rain into the body of water, there is every possibility that those living downstream might probably fetch the same water for drinking or for cooking. So which at the end of the day, exposes them to various germs, that we are talking about, which manifest in form of these diseases that we are talking about in Nigeria. So it's very, very harmful. It's a practice that we need to condemn in a very strong tone. It's practice that we need to find a way to make sure that people, don't defecate openly in the society because of the attendant effect of it at the end of the day.
Okay, you talked about how bad it is for children under 5. How about, its effect on women and girls, especially in their reproductive,
Yeah,
stage?
that's a very good question. Yeah, they are more vulnerable, just like, the children too, in the sense that why waiting for the tick of the night or moving out early in the morning to do the open defecation? We have seen cases of rape in that. Then again, it doesn't really, support their sanitary health. Sanitary health in the sense that when the toilet is when the toilet is not there and people are just defecating openly, there is every tendency that they got infected, at the end of the day. And we all know the consequence of some of these, infection on women, on girl child, at the end of the day. So it's not something that we should condone. It's something that we really, really, really need to work around it and make sure that, we make Nigeria an open defecation-free society. So that's very correct. I agree perfectly with you that they are more vulnerable even than their men counterparts in terms of the effect of open defecation on women, on girl child, because they are prone to gender-based violence in form of rape. They are prone to poor sanitary health in form of catching infection in the process of doing that. So that's very correct, and we need to work towards making sure that we eradicate that in the society.
Yeah, the WASH generally is about ensuring that people live healthy, and then diseases at that level that are especially communicable diseases are contained. So how is this open defecation a problem to achieving successful, clean and and a society that is free of diseases that are that are detrimental to having a very healthy people?
Yeah, so WASH by definition is, WASH is an acronym, exactly. Water, sanitation, and hygiene. So this is more or less like combining three, interrelated issues together when it comes to the issue of environment. So, and open defecation is an eyesore. anywhere. And you see people living around where, people defecate openly, equally have a psychological effect, in the sense that when they walk through the places they are defecating openly, it has an impact in their emotions, in their psychology. It's not something anybody wants to see, be it early in the day or late, in the night. So because of the fact that the stench that is coming from that is a problem, which causes, now added to issue of airborne diseases, then again, it's an eyesore, just like I said, and once there's a contamination with water body, it becomes a very big problem to the society. So it's not just about open defecation, it's not just about doing it there and go, but again, it's a process, that leads to so many other things, in the society. When you defecate openly and get contaminated with water body, the water source, underground water, it becomes a very big health challenge for everybody. This is not limited to the children now, it's for everybody. So that is one big problem about it. And if a society is not clean, there's little or nothing we can talk about water, sanitation, and hygiene. And it's when you put into a good hygiene practice, that's when we talk about no open defecation. That's when we talk about open defecation-free society. So, and until we begin to put up that sensitization to say that, look, it's all about your health. You can't defecate openly and you think you're going to have an healthy society, or live an healthy life, just like you said. That is not going to happen, because at the end of the day, because it's going to affect, it's just like a chain. It's going to affect so many things. You defecate, you leave. In the next 30 minutes, fly will come and perch on it. The same fly will go to the marketplaces and perch on the food materials, perch on the water. And at the end of the day, we all know the resultant effect of that. Then again, if it goes down into the soil, it's going to contaminate the ground soil, which of course people are prone to take again. And if that is not properly, taken care of in terms of maybe boiling it, or in terms of maybe try to make sure that it is well preserved for drinking purpose, for cooking purpose, or for domestic purpose generally, it becomes a very big issue in the society. Then again, it constitutes a menace to that society that practice open defecation, because people will want to avoid that, society, because we said it's an eyesore. The stench alone will deter anybody, from coming to that, particular society. So these are resultant effects that the issue of open defecation can actually bring about when it comes to wash.
Okay, now we know how difficult it is sometimes, to implement some projects in rural areas. So now let's say that, this particular project of, fighting open defecation doesn't work out, or it proves, difficult to fight in these rural areas. Are there alternatives?
Yeah, there are quite alternatives. So just like I said, in any community, the first thing we need to identify is the drivers of open defecation. There are different community has their peculiar, challenges. In some challenges, we are talking about the fact that they lack toilets. They have issue of toilet deficit. In some places, it's just about education. They need to have adequate education. But I will give you an example. In the course of our implementation last year, so we sampled the opinion of the people that, okay, in marketplaces, because we map out some places in Abuja, markets and motor parks. So, and when we interview people, we are asking them, for example, in Jabi Park, which is about the largest park in Abuja. So we are asking people, we saw that they have toilet facility. Yes, it might not be enough, 5 toilets, as big as that place is. So, but you ask people, so why are you guys not using toilet? And they ask you that, look, they can easily catch infection, which is right. But again, they are treating this toilet because they clean them up every now and then. They wash them with Isa, which is the most important thing for anything to do. Then there is water. There is availability of water, because when we are talking about toilets too, if the water facilities are not there, it constitutes another problem.
Talking about, water supply being an issue.
Yeah.
What about dry toilet facilities? Is that also a good alternative?
Yeah. So dry toilet facility, to an extent, depends on the community now, just like we said. So because if the water is not there, and we really need to curb the issue of open defecation, then we resort to dry toilet facility, but with a caveat. So the caveat is that they have to make it, they have to follow the principle of dry toileting. You understand? Because it's not just about using it, you have to cover it up when you use it, and you make the surroundings clean so that it's appealing to people. So these are steps that we really need to educate people about it. They need proper orientation about how to use different, classes of toilet. So that is very important. So when we asked them, and they said, no, they can never use it because once you use a public toilet, you are prone to infection. Yes, that might happen if they don't take proper care of it, if they don't sanitize it, if they don't clean it up. There's every tendency. But in a situation whereby they clean up, that's a belief that we need to correct. And look, and we have some, it's not about education. We have some educated people that had the same belief too, that once you go, even in the hotels, good hotels, they will tell you I can't use their toilet. That's what people will tell you, I can't use their toilet unless it is my room. You understand? Unless I lodge into the room, if they ask you to use the common toilet, they will tell you they are not using it. So these are part of education that we really need to give to people. So they will want to do it in the comfort, in their comfort zone. And some people are like that naturally. They will tell you this is the best time to take their cigarette, and they need their freedom to do it. So these are part of the thing that we really, really need to educate people against.
Okay, now you sounded very optimistic at the beginning about Nigeria attaining the open defecation free status by maybe, as you said, maybe hopefully before the end of 2022.
Yeah.
What are the things that give you this confidence? What are the things I would say are we doing right, or the government is doing right, and what are the things? What are some of the challenges also? So this is like two in one question. What are the...
Okay, so we have a clean-up secretariat in Nigeria, Clean-up Nigeria secretariat in Nigeria, which came as a result of that emergency that was declared, by Mr. President. And again, we should remember the Order 009 too, that declaration by, that followed the state of emergency. The state of emergency was in 2018, 2019 was Order 09, as declared by President Muhammadu Buhari. And we have a secretariat that is working around, the clock, to make sure that we work towards achieving, that target. Then again, at the level of CESDA, so we are again mobilizing stakeholders to make sure that we work towards achieving the same aim. Presently, with the support of British Council, European Union, British Council Act program, so we are able to mobilize stakeholders last week to say, come, let's talk together, rather than working in silos. And we are seeing that cooperation going on now. We need to be able to effectively fight the issue of open defecation. We need a lot of synergy. And we are creating that synergy. Now we are co-creating, platforms, opportunity to make sure that we achieve towards that. Before now, you see different governmental agencies working in silos, without, carrying along other sister agencies, to make sure that since we are working towards the same, goal, we should be able to compare notes, we should be able to share learnings, we should be able to, tell other agencies about what we are doing, at the end of the day. In the past, we don't see much of that, but now we can see that. Even from the WASH norm survey, you can see that synergy from MBS, National Bureau of Statistics, from Ministry of Water Resources, which is the coordinating ministry, from UNICEF. It wasn't a survey that was done in silos. You understand? They released that report, and says that took hold of that report, and we help, to further escalate, some of the issues raised, in that report. And we are not just escalating it again. We are targeting, some of, looking at how we can situate, the recommendations in the right doors of relevant agencies to make sure that they work, in consonance with, the findings of that report. So these are kind of things that we really need, to make sure that at the end of the day we work towards an open defecation free Nigeria come 2025 or 2030. I think it's something we can achieve. We are doing it, and we are not going to rest on our horse. We continue to engage, we continue to advocate where we need, to do that. We are talking about some of the laws, the regulations, because we find out that at times implementation becomes a problem again. So because when we sample the opinion of people and say, why are you open defecating? Why are you defecating openly, in the public? Don't you know that there is a law that punishes that? Some of them will say, no, we don't know, and some of these agencies are not living up to their billings as well in terms of their mandate. So what we are trying to do is to spur them, to live up to the billings with regards to what they are mandated, about as far as, their offices, as far as these institutions are concerned.
Okay, so what are the challenges? I asked two questions. The other part, or do you think this issue of lack of awareness is?
Yeah. So we need a lot of education, just like I said, civic education now. So, and we have to be very methodological in our approach. So we have to be very systemic. Like, take for example, there are some communities that we might need to engage hygiene promoters. So their work, is to engage the community with right messages. Remember, different community has different problems. Some community has challenges of water. They have toilet, but they don't have water. The kind of toilet they have, supports use of water. And if the water is not there, it's as good as they don't have a toilet. So they need, to put a right information there. So then again, generally Nigeria, we need to begin to talk about, the effect. We should talk more of the effect.
Okay, well, talking about the effect, I read somewhere that malnutrition and child stunting are some of the effects of open defecation. How is that?
Okay, so oftentimes when the source of child water or food is contaminated and they ingest, these microbes that we are talking about, it brings about, what is it called? Diarrhea. And we all know the effect of diarrhea, stooling, vomiting, and these have a very great effect on the health of a child. So some, it results to tuberculosis, and at the end of the day, once a child has a tuberculosis, there's every tendency that it's going to stunt the growth of that child. So that is just part of the effect that we really need to consider. Because once it gets to the body system of any, not even the children alone, even the adult, and if it's not taken care of, so in some situations it leads to death. In some situations, it serves as a multiplying effect of what we are even trying to correct. Because once diarrhea sets in, you won't be able to control your bowel at that particular point in time. So once nature beckons, you want to do it, in that particular place. And as you are doing it there, just like we explained earlier, what is it called? Fly perches on that is going to further contaminate, the food or the drink, and it goes on like that. And that's why it's a very potent, open defecation presents a very great danger in the society, and it's something that we must come together as an individual, as an household, as a government, even the private sector. You remember again, just to buttress the point that we made, some months back, the FCDA in collaboration with Health, Health Secretariat, and then FCT Minister, we had a forum whereby we are talking about creating about 100,000 toilets, public toilets in FCT, across FCT, to stem, the tide of open defecation. And they invited the corporate bodies, the private, private sector, to that initiative to say that, look, as government, we can make available, map out spaces in the public that you can
I've seen that already happening, and I think it's a good thing. So with this, I'm sorry, Mr. Babalola, we have to bring this discussion to a close. We are up against time, and thank you very much for coming, and we hope to have another opportunity for some similar discussions in future. And with this, we come to the end of Daybreak on Trust TV. Catch us the same time tomorrow for another edition of your favorite morning show, where we'll be bringing a lot of news and discussions on topical issues. We are up by 7 a.m. every day. I am Abdulaziz, wishing you a good day.
And I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Have a wonderful week ahead.